In the beginning, long before history carved his name into the pages of time, there lived a man who walked a life of shadows and fire, a man who knew battle before he knew peace, a man whose sword tasted blood long before his heart tasted wisdom, a man destined to become a saint, but who first rose as a fearless conqueror. His world was one where kingdoms rose and fell like storms, a world where loyalty was fragile, where power was the only shield, and where destiny belonged to those who dared to claim it. He was born not into holiness nor into calm, but into conflict, a conflict that shaped his childhood, forged his youth, and sharpened his soul like iron against stone. From his earliest days, he carried an unspoken flame inside him, a flame of defiance, of courage, of a hunger to carve his own path. While other children learned games, he learned survival. While others learned patience, he learned strategy. He understood the language of fear, the silence before war, the weight of decisions that could shatter or save lives. As a young warrior, he rode through lands colored by dust and blood. He saw villages burned to ashes, kingdoms trembling under tyrants, and innocent people crushed beneath the boots of greed. The world around him was broken, fragmented, betrayed by those sworn to protect it. And so, he vowed quietly, within the deepest chamber of his soul, that he would never bow. He would rise, no matter the cost. Fear was a luxury he never allowed himself, even when the nights echoed with the screams of battle, even when he stood face to face with death more times than most men blink in a lifetime, even when betrayal circled him like wolves around wounded prey. Through every storm, he walked forward. Through every fire, he refused to burn. There was a time when his sword was the only truth he knew, a time when battlefields became his home, when armor felt lighter than hope, when loyalty was proven in blood. His warriors called him a leader, his enemies called him a monster, but deep inside, he was simply a man wrestling with the world and with himself. His rise to power was not a simple climb. It was a war against fate, against rivals who wanted him erased, against shadows that whispered doubts into his mind, against a world that believed strength belonged only to kings born with crowns. But he was not born with a crown. He forged one with scars, decisions, and relentless will. Many nights, he sat alone beneath a sky filled with ancient stars, wondering why destiny had chosen him, wondering if the path he walked was noble or cursed, wondering whether the sword in his hand was protecting the world or slowly destroying his soul. Yet every sunrise reminded him that destiny does not wait for the hesitant. He fought battles that shook empires. He won victories that even kings envied. His presence on the battlefield was like a storm, unstoppable, unforgiving, feared by all who dared stand against him. His name spread like wildfire, carried by messengers, whispered by travelers, etched in stories told around flickering flames. Mothers warned their children with it. Warriors spoke it with pride. Enemies trembled when they heard it. But behind that name, behind the legend, was a man carrying wounds invisible to the world. Wounds of loss, of regret, of questions that he never allowed himself to answer. He had buried brothers in arms, lost mentors who had shaped him, and watched friends fall in battles but far from home. Each loss built a wall inside him, a fortress around his heart. Yet, fate had plans for him far greater than the sword. Plans waiting to unfold in a moment he did not expect, in a place he did not choose. Through an experience that would break everything he thought he knew about power, destiny, and himself. It happened one evening, during a journey that should have been ordinary. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of amber and fading crimson. He traveled with only a handful of companions, his armor dusty, his mind heavy with the weight of endless conflict. They rode toward a quiet valley, a place untouched by war, or so they believed. As darkness settled around them, a strange stillness filled the air. The wind grew quiet. Even the horses seemed uneasy, their breaths deep and slow. And then, in an instant that felt like the pause between two heartbeats, the world changed. A blinding light descended from the sky. Not the light of fire, not the light of the moon, not the light of any torch or any man-made flame. This was a light that felt alive, a light that swallowed the darkness, that stole the breath from their lungs, that pressed on their chests like the weight of mountains. His companions fell to the ground, their faces pale with terror. But he He remained standing, trembling, yes, breaking inside, yes, but standing. The light surrounded him, embraced him, overwhelmed him, and in that moment, a moment that stretched beyond time, he heard a voice that did not speak to his ears but to his soul, a voice that carried truth, command, and mercy all at once, a voice that shattered him completely and rebuilt him in a single instant. In that moment, the fearless conqueror died, and the saint was born. When the light faded, the world returned. But he was not the same man. His companions looked at him and saw something different. Not fear, not confusion, but a calm that seemed to come from another realm. He had walked through an experience no warrior could understand, no scholar could explain, no kingdom could ignore. He returned to his people not as a conqueror, but as a man transformed, a man chosen, a man who now carried a purpose greater than power, greater than victory, greater than any empire he could have built with force. Those who once feared his sword now listened to his words. Those who once followed him for battle now followed him for truth. He laid down his weapon, not because he grew weak, but because he had found a strength far greater, a strength that came from peace, from humility, from understanding the fragile nature of the human soul. The man who once took lives now saved them. The man who once led armies now led hearts. The man who once sought victory now sought virtue. Years passed and his story spread, not as the tale of a warrior, but as the journey of a man reborn. People traveled across deserts to see him. Kings invited him, armies respected him, scholars recorded his words. And through it all, he walked gently, spoke softly, lived humbly. He had become a light in a world filled with darkness, a voice of wisdom in lands drowning in noise, a guide for everyone who struggled between the person they were and the person they wished to become. And yet, despite the reverence, he never claimed greatness. He never sought titles, never chased glory, because he knew the truth. The man who becomes a saint is not the man who never fought battles, but the one who fought the greatest battle of all, the battle within himself. His legacy lives not in the kingdoms he could have conquered, but in the hearts he uplifted. His journey is a reminder that even the fiercest souls can transform, that destiny can rewrite itself, that a sword can be replaced by compassion, and a conqueror can become a guide. History remembers him as a saint, but before that, he was a man of fire, a man of struggle, a man forged by storms, a man who walked through darkness until the light found him. And sometimes the greatest stories are not about how a man lived, but about how he changed. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing for more tales of transformation and courage.